Hi, welcome to the Scaredy Cat Cakes video. This is actually a video to replace the class that I missed teaching at the Heart of Ohio Toll Convention because I was stuck in Atlanta for 24 hours, but that's enough about that. Anyway, I promised the ladies that were in the class that I would record a video so they could finish painting their pieces, and it would be like they're in a class except that I can't hear them whine, and they have the opportunity to stop and replay instructions just so they can understand them better. So if you happen to buy this pattern packet, you would be able to paint along with this video also. So this is the piece that the ladies received in class, where they would have received in class. And so it would come to them base coated like this, and they would get a tracing, and they would have had the paints available to them in class. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to work on the background just a little bit. I've already done the stenciling with the drywall tape mesh, and I'm going to say a lot. I apologize. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to float around the entire design with dioxazine purple. So you want to get out a nice flat brush that you like to float with, and we're just going to do a quick float around the entire design on the background next to the design with Diox purple. So you can kind of bounce around a little bit, and you don't have to stay in this and just do it all in one stroke. If you want to let an area dry, then you can do that. So I think you get the gist of the idea, so I'm going to pause the video and finish doing this, and then I will come back with the next instructions. Okay, so I have my floating around my piece all done. You want to be sure that you get into these V areas and walk it out a little bit, like around his paws and under the cake plate, and anywhere there's like a little V-shaped area where you can move that color out, and that'll just bring your piece a little more forward on the from the background. The next area we're going to work on is the little pumpkin at the top. So let me get close to that, as close as I can without going all wacko. And what we're going to do first is we're going to dry brush some highlighting on those three little sections of the pumpkin. Those are called the flutes. And if you have a favorite way that you like to dry brush, then please go ahead and do that. But I will show you how I like to dry brush, and we'll see what we can come up with from there. So I like to use a Langnickel short round. This one is an 8. You could use a 10. But I like to use it because it's a sable brush and it's soft. And what I'll do is I'll pick up some paint on my brush, and then I will rub it on my palette in a circular motion. I'm changing directions so that I can work that paint through the bristles of the brush. Once I got it worked through the paintbrush a little bit, I wipe it off on my towel that I keep underneath, and then I go to this area of my hand and just kind of rub it in a circular motion. And when I hit it on my hand, it feels cold. But after I rub for a little while, the coldness goes away. It doesn't actually get warm. It just, the coldness goes away. And that's a pretty good indicator that you've taken enough paint out of your brush that you can go to your piece and dry brush. So I'm going to dry brush some moon yellow on these sections of the pumpkin. And I know he's a little guy, but you still need to do it. And this would be the point where I would hear whining. But I don't, so I am happy. So you see I've dry brushed a little bit of highlighting onto that pumpkin. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to float some highlighting on the pumpkin, again with moon yellow. And this is just a regular corner load blended out side load float of highlighting. And I'll start on the outside edge of my pumpkin. And it's going to look a little bright, but it will tone down as it dries. And you see I'm going to those outside edges. Now this is a small pumpkin, so if you have a little hair dryer or a heat gun, you could dry these floats before you go on to your next one. I like to use this. It's a Ranger Heat It tool, and it works really fast and it's quiet, so I can use it while I am recording. And now I'm just going to turn my piece over and do the other side. So there, you can see I defined those sections of that pumpkin really well with that float. I'm going to dry it again. I'm going to do my first layer of shading with Heritage Brick. It's a little bit of a red, and I like to put some red into my pumpkins, so this is how I do it. And with Heritage Brick, there are going to be a few places that I float shading. Of course, one of the first places is going to be on those outside sections next to the center section. See that nice red I get? So, there we go. And now I'm going to dry that real quick. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to float this Heritage Brick in the bottom of each section. I'm going to treat each section as its own little section. I'm not going to just float straight across the bottom, but I want to do like a little C-stroke float in the bottom of each section. And see how that just kind of rounds out the bottom of that pumpkin. And I'm also going to do that in the top. So yes, you are floating shading on top of a little bit of the highlight that you did, but really it's okay. Trust me. Okay, there we go. Heritage Brick, done. Try this again. Now this is going to be the easy part. You are going to float shading again in all those same places with a little bit of burnt umber. So, corner load, blend out, burnt umber, and back into those sections that I just did with Heritage Brick, I'm going to float some burnt umber. Along the bottom. And along the top. Now you'll understand why this was a 4-hour class. Let's dry that little pumpkin again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry brush some little bit brighter highlights with just a touch of warm white. So again, however you like to dry brush, if you want to try it my way or your way, it doesn't matter to me as long as you're comfortable with your dry brushing method. So I'm going to dry brush a little bit of warm white in the tops and just along the little bottom right there. And my brush was a little wet, so you see I got some little blobs. And that's what you're not supposed to do. I always like to show you what you're not supposed to do. But anyway, you get the idea. So there's the brighter highlight, the warm white. And now you want to take a liner brush. Well, that one's kind of bent. But we'll see if we can straighten it out. Must have been stuck somewhere. And we're going to paint the pumpkin stem itself. You could probably do this with one little stroke. And that's done with burnt umber. And that one's just a little too bent to suit me. So I'm going to find another, maybe. There we go. And then you're going to take some moon yellow with a liner brush. And you're going to just line some highlight on that stem. Now that got a little bright to suit me because I let the burnt umber dry a little too long. So I'm just going to tone it down with a little burnt umber there. See, you can always fix things. Now, this is something that we're going to be doing to each section of the cake. So keep in mind, this is a reflective shadow or reflective light on the side edge of the pumpkin. And it's just going to go on the right side. And it's a corner load float. And I'm going to turn this upside down so I can do it better. All I'm going to do is I'm going to float this very well blended out winter blue along the right edge, and yes, that goes right over your shading and highlighting of the two sections, the center section on the right side and the right section. And you can see how that kind of shows a reflection there. It just makes the pumpkin look a little rounder even still. Now the vine and the leaf are done with foliage green. So get out a little foliage green. And you'll need evergreen also, which I didn't pull. Let me get up here and find my evergreen. There it is. You're going to need evergreen and also moon yellow, which is already on your palette. So with a liner brush, I'm going to take foliage green, and I'm just going to line a vine coming from my pumpkin stem, or the top of my pumpkin. And you can make it as curly or as not curly as you want. Make it go to your leaf. And then just paint your leaf in with foliage green. You're going to line some highlighting with moon yellow on the stem. Just here and there, it doesn't have to go everywhere. And you're going to line a little bit on the leaf, and this helps if your leaf is still a little wet. And then you're going to line some shading, liner brush, with evergreen. So I'm just kind of picking the areas that are underneath lower edge of that leaf. And don't stress too much about this because you have some lettering that goes across there. So the leaf isn't going to be your focal point. Okay, so now I'm going to put these paints away and get ready for the next section of the cake, which is this graphite layer. And we're back. We're going to work on that graphite section of the cake. And the first thing we're going to do is dry brush some highlighting with Dove Gray. All these paints are deco art, so that's what I use. That's what I love. So you can always convert them to brands that you have at home. But we're just going to dry brush some Dove Gray. And basically through the center, it's pretty wide, but through the center of the cake. So right under and about as wide as the little pumpkin cake topper. Okay. Don't wipe out those little dots you have there. All right. That was easy. Now, we are going to line some spider webs on our cake, and that's what I put the little dots on there for. Those are just the centers of the spider webs. And let's see if I can tell you an easy way. There is an easy way. Do it like you're lining a little star. So you just go down and across, and then you're going to go put that little X in there. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to do the little curved webbing on all of these. And that's with a liner brush and thinned warm white. And you might get some more little webs in there than I get. If you need to put the pattern on, you can, but you really shouldn't. The dots should be enough. And then we have some over here. And with your liner brush, you use thin paint. It's ink consistency, and you want to kind of stay as straight up and down as you can on the brush and on the tip, so you get nice thin lines. I'm not going to say mine are nice, but they'll pass. I'm going to add one more in there. And you've got one down here in the corner. This will be an easy one because it's just got 3 little sections. And one up here. Brush was getting a little dry. And then I have one down here. And I'm going to turn this off while I finish those webs, and then I'll show you how we detail them a little bit. Okay, lined those webs in. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect them like to each other. So just draw a little line in between just to make them look like they're connected to each other. And you can draw it anywhere you want. And so they connect off. This one will connect down here. This one will connect up there. I'm doing a really bad job on these. Yours is going to look so much better. I guarantee. Okay. And then you're just going to take the tip of your liner brush and pick up some paint. And this is going to take a little while, and you're going to have to try to keep your hands out of it, but we're just going to add dots at every little intersection and in the centers. So it just kind of adds a little, oops, didn't connect him to anything. Adds a little bit more cuteness to it, I guess, if you want to call it that. And hopefully yours will be dots and not ovals like mine. So I'll finish that and then we'll come back. Alright, so I have all my little detail dots on my webs and I've dried it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a better flat brush because that one's pretty bad. And I'm going to float some shading with lamp black. And it's basically going to go on all four sides of the cake. And it's going to go on top of those webs that you did so spectacularly. So I'm going to float lamp black down the sides. And across the bottom. And across the top. All right. One of the last things we're going to do is we're going to dry brush a little bit brighter highlight, warm white highlight, through the center of that cake. And that's going to go right on top of your spider webs. You just want to brighten it up a little bit more. And you're basically going to go just in that center area of the cake. And here again, especially on this section of the cake, lettering goes on top of it. So don't stress too much. People will get the idea that there are spider webs back there and that you did a wonderful job on them. So turn this off, grab the paints, and we'll work on the next section. I forgot to have you do one thing to that graphite layer of cake, and that was that soft winter blue float down the right side of the cake as a reflective. I call it shadow, but it's actually reflective light. So blend out your winter blue really well and do a little reflective shadow of winter blue on the right side of that cake. Whoops, let me get down there where you can see it. If you need to, you can mop it out a little bit. Okay. All right. Okay, we're moving down to the middle section of the cake, and that was based in bleach sand. And what I'm going to take is the piece of drywall joint tape that I included in your kit. And if you don't have that, you can find this at Lowe's in the drywall department. And it's joint tape. Just look for the tape that by the drywall tape that has the holes in it. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to stencil some little foliage green dots onto that layer of the cake. And when I stencil, I like to use a cosmetic sponge. I like to load just like one little edge of it. There you go. And kind of pounce it off until it's sticky. It's not mushy, it's sticky. And I have much better luck using this stuff than if I use a stencil brush. And don't worry if you get some on the kitty's tail, it'll be okay. So you're just going to go around and stencil these little dots onto this layer of the cake. Okay, there you go. See, it doesn't have to be solid. It can be all different colors. It's just to add some interest to that cake. And I'm going to let that dry a little bit. I'm going to dry it anyway. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry brush some highlighting through the center of this cake with warm white. And again, this will be just through the center, and it'll probably, you can go as wide as the cake above it is. And you can't see it a whole lot. You can see it a little, and that's what counts. And you wash your brush out. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to float shading on all four sides of this cake, just like we did on the top, the layer above it, with foliage green. So both sides, top and bottom of this cake, get shading floats of foliage green, and that means you get to go around the kitty's tail. So have fun with that. I just like the way this makes it green, the cake layer green up a little bit, and I don't know, it kind of looks yummy to me. But then I'm strange, and I like odd colors, so it only makes sense that I would like green cake. So now I'm going to go across the top. Alright, very good. And let's let that dry. You're going to need a really small liner. If you have like a 20-aught or an 18-aught liner, that would be really good. We're just going to add those little orange dots around some of these green dots. And there is no special pattern or anything that you need to stick to. It's just however and wherever you want to line some dots around your piece. But those dots are spiced pumpkin. So you just want to pick up a little bit of spiced pumpkin on the tip of your liner brush and just add some little dots around the outside edge of some, not all, of these little green dots. Aren't you glad I didn't do it around all of them? That would have taken a long time. So you can follow the picture and try to put it around all the ones that I did, or you can just pick and choose. But I'm going to let you go to town with that, and I will come back when I'm done putting dots. Alright, so we have dots around our dots. So now what I want you to do, you want to make sure they're dry. I hit mine with the dryer again. We are going to deepen the shading along the bottom of the cake. That includes around the little cat's tail with a float of evergreen. So, just some evergreen, just to deepen that up. Didn't want to do the tops or the sides so much. Okay? I say okay like you're going to answer me. And now we can take our liner brush and we can add the trim on the bottom of the graphite cake on top of the green cake with spiced pumpkin, and those are just little set down ovals. You just get to pretend like you're a cake decorator, and you're just going to set down some little ovals. Don't make them too little, because I'm going to stay true to form here. I'm going to have you put a little highlight on each one of these. So don't make them too small. Make sure they kind of touch each other. But that just kind of finishes off the bottom of that top layer of cake. Okay, cool. We have a little bit of a bead of frosting there, beaded frosting. I'm going to dry that real quick. And then I'm just going to come back with my liner brush and add just a touch of a highlight on each one of those little beads of frosting with moon yellow. It really is handy to have this heated gun. It makes, I don't like waiting for things to dry, so this is my friend. You can get it on Amazon.com. Just make sure you get the one that's for American plugs, not the European ones. So let's get into our moon yellow, which you should have on your palette. If you don't, squirt out a little bit more, not much. We're just going to add a little bitty highlight on the top of each of these little beads, and it adds a little bit to it. Okay, cool. We got 2 layers of the cake done already. So let's take a break, and I'll pull the paints for the next layer and we'll get going on that. And of course, I forgot to have you dry brush a little bit brighter highlight through that green layer of cake with warm white, and we're also going to do that reflective shadow down the right side with winter blue. It's a good thing I stopped to read my directions. Every once in a while anyway. So I'm just going to brighten up that highlight, and this one will show up a little more because we have that orange and that shading in there. Sorry, grandkid calling. So let's do that reflective shadow down the right side of this green cake also. I'm going to turn it around because it's just easier. If you wanted to, you could wait and do these all towards the end, but I might forget them completely if I did that. So now I'm going to go pull paints for the next section, and I'll be back. Alright, we're going to work on level 3 or layer 3 of our cake. And you're going to need some graphite and your liner brush. And what we're going to do is we're going to line these diamond shapes onto our cake with thinned graphite. Don't make them too thin, because you know me, I'm going to line a highlight on them, and I'm also going to line some shading. So I put little dots on there for you so that you could have kind of a guide. So let's just go through like this is the easiest way. And if my dots didn't line up exactly right, you can fix them. I like to go through and line it one diagonal and then come back and line the other. And yes, you even do have a little bit of a diagonal over here on the other side of the cat's tail. So let's go from here to here. Just simple lines to form our triangles, or our diamonds, I mean. Now I'm renaming things. Okay, that was easy. And now, like I said, we're going to line a highlight on them, so you need some warm white. And this is going to go just through the center intersections of these. If you hear a little bit of yelling and stuff in the background, that's just my grandkids playing in the pool. I'll tell you a funny story. I was out there cleaning the pool before they got here, and we have like a raised wall along the back of our pool, and I was standing on that, netting the pool. And as I went to get down, I kind of misjudged. So in the pool I went. Clothes, watch, Fitbit, everything. Yeah, it's refreshing, but made me really extremely glad that you can't see my hair right now. Anyway, and then we're going to take our liner brush and some lamp black, and we're going to line some shading on those diagonals, and that of course will be along the bottom edge here. And actually, before I did this, I should have dry brushed highlighting with Moon Yellow, but I'll just do it when I get done with this. Hopefully you'll read your directions and find my little error there. I'm going to blame it on the dunk in the pool that I missed that. Let me dry this real quick, and then I will dry brush some highlighting with Moon Yellow. So before you line your diagonals on here, you should have dry brushed your cake with Moon Yellow. So it's just like you're in class. I forget things in class. I forget things on video. So I'm going to crack open my Moon Yellow and get a little bit of dry brushing in there. Won't matter that much if I forget, since I forgot. And I can say that because I'm the teacher. So today is my day. I had a little video malfunction. All the memory filled up on my video camera, so I had to stop and delete some things so I could finish this. So I think the last thing I was doing was dry brushing some Moon Yellow in the background on this cake, because I'd forgotten to do it before I lined my diamond shapes. So now we've got moon yellow dry brushing. We've lined our diamond shapes with graphite. We've lined some highlighting on them with warm white, and we've lined some shading with lamp black. So now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to float shading on all 4 sides of that cake layer with heritage brick, and that means even around the cat's tail. So again, down both sides next to the cat's tail, top and bottom, we'll get a float of heritage brick. And don't worry too much if you get some of this heritage brick on the cat's tail. It'll be okay, because we have lots to do to the kitty cat. Here again, you have a little V area, so you want to walk that color out a little bit there. Turn it around so I can get my other side. And go across the top. And you want to be careful with this layer because it doesn't really have any trim except for those little green dots. So you want to make it nice and straight, or as straight as you can. And I'm going to go across the bottom. And again up across the back of the cat. All right, nice shading there. Now these foliage green dots are a little bit bigger. You want to make sure you have some fresh foliage green out on your palette. And you can do these with the back of a brush, but you have to promise to keep your hands out of it once you get them on there. So I'm just using the back of one of my liner brushes, and I'm going to dot more down on the cake. It goes off a little bit above the line of the cake, but you want to keep most of the dot on the orange cake itself. So I'm dotting tops, bottoms, and the intersections. And the bottom, you want to keep it above the cake plate, mostly. It can go off a little bit, but you know, this is realistic here. So, and of course the cat's going to hide that dot. So don't put one there. Don't put dots on those. And then you want to dot in the centers. See how cute that makes that cake? I wish I could decorate cakes this well in real life. All right. We have to let those dry, and then we're going to come back and add, of course, a little highlight dot of moon yellow to them. And then we're going to come back and we're going to dry brush a little bit brighter highlighting through this, just the center of the cake with warm white, and do our winter blue reflective shadow on the right hand side. So I'm going to stop the video while these dots dry, and we'll be back. Alright, I think my green dots are dry, so I'm going to put a little moon yellow highlight dot in the top left side of each of these green dots. Right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry brush a little bit brighter highlight with warm white. through the center of this cake. And yes, it goes right over the dots and the diamonds. All right. And then we have that one little thing to do with the winter blue reflective float down the right side. You guys will be getting real good at this by the time we're done. And again, I'm going to turn it over so it's a little easier for me. All right, got my little reflective highlight there. The next thing we're going to work on is our cake stand. And there actually was a cake stand back here, but then when I put the cat on it, kind of covered it up. So all we end up with are the little curls and swirls of the bottom of the cake stand. So your main area I've already painted in lamp black, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line these scrolls. Again, liner brush, thin down lamp black paint. We'll do the easy one first, this one over here. You want to make these a little thick because they are holding up that big old cake. And we are, of course, going to line some highlighting on them. So you see, I don't do mine all in one stroke. I start and stop in different areas just to make it easier. There's no law that says you have to do them all in one single line. Okay. There is some lined highlighting on the scrolls with Dove Gray, and then you're going to dry brush a little highlight on that flat cake plate part of it with Dove Gray. So cake stand goes pretty quick. So, and then I will get in there and dry brush a little Dove Gray on the flat part of the cake stand. And then one last thing, just on that flat part of the cake stand, you're going to do that reflective float with winter blue. Let me find my flat brush back. Threw it down somewhere. Too many brushes here. Need to get rid of some. And let's do a little bit of that reflective winter blue on the right edge of that lamp stand. Okay. Woohoo! Cake part is done. We're going to move on to our cat next. So, let's pause. I'll pull the paints and we'll get started on our kitty cat. Alright, on to the cat. We are going to paint the cat's nose and inside of his ears with dragon fruit. So let's give him a nice nose. We're also going to paint inside his ears. Just one coat should do. And we'll go ahead and paint inside the eyes with warm white. And this again, one coat will do. Looks kind of spooky right now. Okay, we are going to start stroking on the hair of the cat. And what you'll need to do that is a 1/4-inch filbert rake. Just looking if I can find mine. There it is. I like to use Royals filbert rakes because the bristles, are a little bit springier. They don't get mushy when you thin down the paint and start using them. So if you've never used a rake or a comb brush before, basically it's like a whole lot of little liner brushes. So you always use liner consistency paint, and you always paint with your brush as straight up and down as you can on the tips. And what I like to do is I like to use my pinky as an anchor so that it helps me to stay up on the tips a little better. So I'll plop my pinky down and then start stroking and just move my brush from there. And it just helps me to stay on the edge. So if you have trouble staying straight up and down and on the tips of your brush, you may want to try using your pinky as an anchor. So what we're going to do first is we are going to stroke on some fur with thinned graphite. So you want to thin your paint down, liner consistency, and load your filbert rake just like you would load your brush if you were using a liner brush. Blot it out. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stroke basically all over. So I'm going to go between his eyes, behind his head, wherever there's going to be shadowed areas. In fact, just go ahead and stroke all over. That will give you a good feel. And when you want to be sure to stroke off the edge of your piece. So that you start hiding those straight, flat edges a little bit. Forget his ears. I want you to follow the shape of each thing that you're stroking. So if you're stroking on like these whiskers, you want to follow those shapes. And we can clean up and repaint the nose again. But just follow the shape of the cat. I'm going to go across his back, and it doesn't matter if you get fur out onto the cake. That's what you want. You want to kill that edge a little bit, that hard edge. So, as you can see, I planted my pinky, I'm staying up on the tip, and I'm following the shape of that kitty's back. And I'm just going to cover him in fur. So while I work on this, I'm going to pause the video and come back when I get ready to add another layer. Okay, so you can see I've basically covered the entire cat with graphite fur. So my next layer is going to be the lighter fur, which is thinned warm white. So I'm going to just kind of go through and start defining little different areas of his head. I want to be sure I still see some of that graphite behind, but I want to start giving him some lighter fur too. And this is where you really get to start getting rid of that hard edge around the cat. So this is going to be something that you just get to kind of play with the color back and forth until you get him to look the way you like. Now I might get him too white, so I'll have to go back and stroke some graphite back into him. And here I'm restroking some warm white because I'm lightening up some areas of him. On his back and his tail, I kind of like to leave some gray stripes, so you just do that by not stroking those areas as heavily with the warm white. And don't be afraid to turn your piece every which way to get it to where you can stroke it on easily. I got a kind of a blob there. That'll be okay. I'll make it work. We do have some shading that we float on here also. So, you know, don't worry too much about the dark, losing the dark areas. We'll come back and float some shading on them. I stroked over his tail quite a bit, so I'm going to come back and add some graphite in there to redefine those stripes a little bit. And let's work on his back a little bit. Thin my paint a little bit more so it moves. You want to keep your paint thin. You start getting thicker, then it doesn't move as easily. And if you don't want your cat to have those stripes, it's okay. He doesn't have to have them. You can make him all white or all gray. You could put in some darker stripes. Don't forget the top of his little paw. He's starting to look good. So I'm going to go back in with a little bit of graphite and redefine some of those darker areas again. Just because I can. Maybe. So let's see, I want to get him back here again with some dark, maybe a little bit right here. So I'm going to play with this for a little while, just trying to get it to a way that I like. So I'm going to turn the video off and work on him for a little while, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've played a little with my filbert comb and went back and forth with some graphite fur and some warm white fur, and I think I have my cat where I want him right now. That could always change later on. So what we're going to do now is we're going to float some shading to find the different areas on the cat. First I'm going to float some shading with graphite. And so the first place I'm going to go is here on the tail, behind the body. You can just pity pat that along so it still looks like it's, you can still get the idea that there's fur there. And then I'm going to float on the body behind the head. And here you can just go tuck it in here and there. It's not really a straight float because you want to kind of give it, still have the idea that there's fur there. I'm going to go on the ears behind the head. I'm going to also go above this paw here. I'm going to go around this ear. I'm also, excuse me, got a little frog in my throat. I'm also going to go here above the fur that goes around his mouth. I'll go right there between the eyes. Probably a little bit right in here and on the paws underneath. There's just a tiny bit of the paws down here showing. I also want to give him some little toes on his paws, so you want to shade to make that center toe stand out. And if you can get into these little front paws, that'd be good too. And I think that's about it. I think I want to deepen this a little bit. So I'm coming over it with another float. And if there are any areas that you want to make a little bit darker, let's go down here. This is where you would do it, just by tucking some floats of graphite in there. And now, with a liner brush and warm white, we're just going to line the brightest fur on our cat. So liner consistency paint, and I'm using a small liner, and all I want to do is just pull some definite, stronger pieces of fur. just to make it a little bit more interesting, especially here on his paw. Down here under his nose. And just wherever you feel like you want to add some an extra pop of highlight. Just kind of like, if you don't think you need it, you don't need it. It's okay. And I think that's about going to do it for me. Maybe a few little here. All right. Cool. So he has some whiskers and some claws. And so you're going to use your liner brush and lamp black. And let's just give us some, first I'll give you some little dots, kind of, I call them whisker dimples. There. And then we'll give him some little black whiskers. And I don't make my whiskers straight. You can make your whiskers straight if you like, but I'm just not a straight whisker person. I prefer the wiggly, squiggly, wiry looking ones. As long as we got that black there, let's give him some little claws. On as many feet as you can find to put them on. So, little claws. And now, as long as let's clean up his eyes a little bit so we can start working on those. If you got hair in his eyes, you want to clean that up. And I probably want to clean up the nose just a touch, and that was with dragon fruit. Not too much needs to be cleaned up, but just a little. All right. He's looking cute. I'm going to dry the eyes and the nose real quick. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be floating shading in the bottom of the ears and the nose with cinnamon drop. So get a little cinnamon drop, just a dot. And let's float some shading in the bottom of the nose and the ears. a little bit of cinnamon drop out there. Not a good thing. That happens, you just lick the end of an eraser and erase the color where it shouldn't be. Okay, and we are going to float highlighting. Oh, I forgot the ears. Might as well finish that. But once I get done with the ears, then I'll float highlighting in the top of the nose and the ears with warm white. So let's see if I can get this shading in here without getting it all over. So basically you're just touching a little bit of cinnamon drop in the bottom of those ears. Okay, and now highlighting with warm white. Top of the nose and in the tips of the ears. Inside, we're talking inside of the ears. Got a couple little rough spots. Didn't want to let my float move. And let's get inside these ears. Okay, cool. And now the eyes. You're going to need foliage green, just a touch. You might still have it on your palette that you can get into. You're going to take and float foliage green in the bottom of each eye. Just to give his eye some color. Almost done with this kitty cat. I think I'll dry that float real quick. And then we're going to paint the pupils in his eyes with some lamp black. And then we are also going to outline the eye and add some eyelashes with thin lamp black. So here again you want liner consistency lamp black paint, and you want to stay up on the tip of your brush. So just a thin little line and some eyelashes. You don't want this to be real thick. I'm going to keep it as thin as you can. And of course, it's always easier to pull eyelashes one way than it is to pull them the other. It's just the way it is. Cool. And one last little thing to do is to add a little warm white highlight in each pupil. So just pick up a little warm white on the tip of your liner brush just a little bit of a warm white highlight to those eyes. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to be painting the lettering. So I'm going to pause and put the pattern on for my lettering, and then we'll come back and do that. All right, pattern for lettering is on. I used white graphite, and it's painted with thinned warm white. So you want to use a nice small liner brush. I'm not exactly sure what size this is. It could be a 18-aught, a 20-aught. But here again, you want to stay straight up and down on your brush. And you don't have to do the letter all in one piece. You can start and stop in different places so you can get the curves and swirls that you need. And so just stay on your brush, on the tip of your brush. And just start painting your letters. Make sure you have enough paint in your brush to start with. I reload for like every letter. Okay, so while I do that, I'm going to pause and come back to show you what you do to the lettering next. All right, so the lettering's on. I had my close-up picture close by so I could see it. And now you see that the letters get kind of lost in this area here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my liner brush and I'm going to make a wash of lamp black. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line a shadow basically to the top and left of each letter just to help pop them off the design background. So what you do, let me see if I can get a little closer. It doesn't like it. How about that? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to go. I'm just going to line a little shadow to the top and left of each letter. And you see how that kind of pops it off the background a little bit more? So to the left here. In some places you won't be able to get to the left, but wherever you can, and you do this right over the design itself to kind of block out or tone down that background so the letters will stand out a little bit more. I think you can see what a difference that makes. So I'll finish that up and we'll be back. All right, so I've gone and lined that shadow with lamp black, and I think you can see how much that makes the lettering stand out a little bit more. So the next thing we have to do is we have to add this scalloped border around the edge of our piece, and that's just done with a flat brush and lamp black. It's not really watered down. And all I do is, let me back out of this a little bit. Whoops, wrong way. I'll get the controls right someday, about the time I end this video. And all we do is you just go around and not float, but paint little scallops around the edge. I just wanted to do something different, and I thought with the fancy little cakes, that fancy little scallops would do the trick. So you just go around and paint little scallops all the way around. Now don't make them too small, because of course we go back and dry brush a highlight on them, because it just wouldn't be right if I just left them alone. So all the way around the piece. Whenever I put a border on, I usually start it down at the bottom of my pieces, just so it can start off centered. May not finish centered, but it starts off that way. And with the uneven edge of the barrel stave, you know, you just kind of gotta play with it. Some of them go on really easy, and some of them take a couple of tries to get them on there right. When you get up here to the top where the stem is, you can just paint the stem in black. And then just continue the scallop across there. So I'll let you finish that up, and then we'll come back and we'll dry brush on those. Okay, I'm going to show you another little trick I like to do to paint the side edges of my piece, because it would look kind of silly if I left it like that. So here's this cosmetic sponge that I used to stencil those dots on the cake, and I'm just going to cut off the part that has dried paint on it, so I have a new clean surface. And I'm just going to pick up some paint on the edge like this, and then I can just go around. Oops, sorry. It's election time, so you get those phone calls all the time. Anyway, so I just go through and just wipe that paint on the edge. It's a lot quicker and easier and cleaner. I used to do it with my finger, but then when I started using these, I figured, what the heck, let's just do it this way. So that's quick and easy, painting the edge of your piece. Especially with these rough barrel staves. You probably have to get a little brush to get into that little crevice there, but that's nothing compared to what we used to have to do. Okay, so now we are going to dry brush, highlighting, and this is going to sound a little weird, but we're going to dry brush on each of these little scallops with foliage green. So I'm going to pick up some foliage green and just, it's not a lot of dry brushing, it's just enough to add some interest to it. So I don't know if you can see that. Let me tighten up a little bit. And we'll get up here where you can see more. Just breaking up the black a little bit. See, I'm also going to dry brush a little on here. It really doesn't shine green that much, but I didn't have a blue on the palette other than the winter blue, and that wouldn't have been bright enough to suit me, so I went with the green. So all the way around the piece, in each little scallop, you're just going to scrub some foliage green. And that is basically the last thing you do to this piece, except sign it, varnish it, and add a hanger to the back. Now I like to use the ring off the pop top on a soda can. You could just pop that off and use it on the back, glue it on the back here, and then bend it out a little bit, and it makes a great hanger on these. So I am almost done with this piece. I hope that this helped you paint your piece. Again, I apologize that I wasn't there to teach the class, and hopefully I will never have to spend the night in an airport ever again. Thanks so much. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me at jstfndsgn@aol.com, or you can call me even if you'd like. My number is on your pattern packet, and I hope you enjoy your little creation, your kitty cat creation of Scaredy Cat Cake Company. And thank you so much.